Hi everyone, my name is Lias Bozonelis. I am a Los Angeles-based screenwriter and producer who is also Greek American, and I am very excited to be on this week's episode of Learn from the Greeks. Let's see, you wanted me to start with a bit of background on myself. So I was born and raised in New Jersey to Greek American parents. My mother's side is originally from Patra and my father's side is from Nafplion. I grew up in New Jersey, and then I went to school in Washington, D.C., and I studied journalism and music composition and theory. I was interested in, and always have been, in anything creative, and I knew that at some point I would really like to marry those skill sets of writing with something on the creative end of things. Let's see, during college, I spent time in Florence, Italy, studying abroad, and so after graduation from college, I moved back to Italy, and I taught English as a foreign language. And when I came back to the States, I was able to land a job at Time Warner, and I worked in corporate communications, and I was very excited to sort of learn the process behind these very big brands, in particular, New Line Cinema and HBO and a lot of content creators. So I ended up following my boss to a job at New Line Cinema, and it was an extremely exciting time to be there, where I learned every facet of the business, big budget films, small budget films, eventually went over to Picture House Films and sort of learned the indie side of the business. It was a subsidiary of New Line at the time. And then, you know, it was at that point that I realized I really wanted to screenwrite full-time in my career. But I quickly learned that I would need a well-paying job in order to pursue that effort at the same time. So I sort of switched gears into journalism and ended up being a staff writer for Fortune magazine, which sent me all over the world for a beat of time. I spent time in India covering the Fortune 500 conference, and in Silicon Valley and Los Angeles with environmental issues and so on and so forth. And I was writing screenplays that entire time. And then I finally got traction in my first representation and was able to, sort of coddle a business together of where I was writing a bunch and trying to set up those projects. And then I was also doing a bunch of script consulting. I started as what's called a script reader, reading, all the material that was coming through for assessment at places like HBO, a manager producing house called Anonymous Content, many places. And then I did sort of more robust consulting for Ridley Scott's company, Scott Free, and George Clooney's company, Smokehouse. And then I eventually, sort of went back to the writer side of things, but all of that work really strengthened my storytelling skills, reading other people's work, analyzing, and being able to sort of really get entrenched in those projects helped inform my own writing. So I ended up becoming head writer of a series called Sorry Not Sorry, which is a really fun and inclusive female feminist sketch comedy series that premiered on Go 90 for Complex Networks and Sony's Astronauts Wanted. And then from there, everything just kind of spiraled, and I was able to put some movies together and sell a few projects and set up a few projects. And my next project, or my current project, is this movie called Safer at Home, which I actually co-wrote and co-produced during COVID lockdown, which was acquired for international distribution, and it rolled out in the States just a couple of weeks ago on February 26th, and we're continuing to expand into more theaters and drive-ins, but you can also get it on demand. And it's continuing its international rollout. So we're really, really excited about that. And I love writing in every genre. That's a thriller. I have a psychological thriller with the same director that, we're working on packaging. And then I also have a project that will be coming to Greece. So I am really, really excited about where everything is headed. But it's been, a ton of work and a lot of sweat equity. But I've had really wonderful people that I've worked with who've been supportive and great. And so I feel very grateful to be where I am in my career. Here's the next question. Okay, so you asked about a project which is very near and dear to my heart called Deep Sea Baby. And it is a dramedy with a very strong social conscious message at the core. And it's a dramedy with a very strong social message at the core. And it sort of explores relationships and has a very, sort of dark undercurrent to it, even though the whole idea is to, provide a lot of levity and keep you laughing while tackling sort of sensitive subject matter. And the reason that this project, or part of the reason this project is so near and dear to my heart, is because I am looking to shoot it in Greece. And Greece right now has an amazing rebate, up to 40% for feature films with no cap. And that incentive is among the best in the world. And I know that Greece has been, you know, especially as a result of COVID lockdown, has been doing these campaigns that, you know, Greece is a safe place to shoot. And there's a lot of people looking for work. And while Greece has long, you know, been doing local production, a lot of international production is now coming to Greece as a result of these wonderful changes that they're making, and wonderful incentives and rebates. So you know, this is a project that I've written solo by myself, and then you know, I've paired with a wonderful director, and you know, trying to put all the pieces together and attaching talent. Now it's an American production, so we'll be working with all of those, you know, wonderful producers here, but working very, very hard so that we can shoot it there. Because that would just be a complete and total dream come true, not just because this project is so important to me on a personal level, but also just because it would bring jobs and production to Greece, to our motherland, which is something that I've long strived for, and I want to have more of those relationships. And I already, you know a ton of people there who would just be such an asset to this production to hire. So I have my fingers crossed that we can get that one off the ground. And yes, I do think Greece can play a significant role in the entertainment industry for all the reasons I just mentioned. That rebate was one of the most enticing rebates in the you know, in the world, really. And you know, also Greece is so aesthetically beautiful and has really temperate climate, and it has a very long season to be shooting in. And it also, you know, one of the really cool things that I learned from some of these programs like ECOME and the Hellenic Film Commission is that there are so many wonderful and diverse atmospheres and ecosystems to use in Greece that I wasn't aware of. For instance, like, you know, Mount Olympus and wooded areas, and, you know, aside from just the iconic whitewashed buildings against the Aegean Sea. And so it really has this wonderful, you know, all these really wonderful cinematic, beautiful textures and landscapes and whatnot. So, you know, I think Greece is an asset for so many reasons. And, you know, I hope we can get in there quickly before the rest of the world, you know, joins the bandwagon to try and shoot there, because it is a wonderful, wonderful place to bring cinema. So the next question is more about my, you know, history and what I've learned and what some of my big takeaways were working for some of these major companies. So I can say for working with a place like New Line Cinema, that was so exciting because I was there during the success of The Lord of the Rings, smaller movies like Rush Hour and Notebook that exploded into really big movies. And I really learned the commercial side of the business and how that works and how they market and how to tackle that. And then when I moved over to Picture House, I learned the like very, you know, independent side of the business and the more sort of esoteric filmmaking and its beauty, and, you know, why there is such a need for art house film, and why both are important. So those were big takeaways from me. And then, you know, like I've mentioned, being a script consultant for companies such as OddLot Entertainment, Anonymous Content, HBO, New Line for a bit, George Clooney's Smokehouse, Ridley Scott's Scott Free, you know, all of that was just obsessive analysis of these, you know, projects that were coming in and really breaking them down and understanding, you know, from a story perspective, whether I felt it had a place in the market and how well the story was told and what adjustments would need to be made. And all of that was just exercising those muscles for my own writing. So it really, really helped, you know, when I was reading at volumes of 300 projects, you know, a year or sometimes more, probably close to 1,000 projects a year. You know, it just kind of informs, you know, all those pieces start clicking together. And I really think, you know, it was the power of just utilizing those skills over and over and over again to sense good story, which helped inform my own writing. You know, so I think a lot of, you know, I'm really thankful to these companies for giving me that opportunity, because I think it benefited my solo career as well. In addition, I also spent 4 years working for Netflix original films, and I think that was very cool because it was the first time I really worked in this space, this digital space, where, or I'm sorry, a streaming platform space, because when they first started, they weren't sure if they were going to do much in the way of original films. And then, you know, the budgets were very, very tiny and they were only making a few a year, and then cut to a couple years later where the slates were just churning out all of these wonderful original movies at very high budgets. So I sort of got to be on the ground floor of that and watch that progression as I was analyzing projects for them as a reader and a script consultant. So that was very, very exciting and helped me, you know, really learn about this news side, which has quickly become the biggest side of the business in terms of the major streamers like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Apple TV, so on and so forth. So, you know, grateful for that experience as well. Okay, so the next question is interesting. You're asking if Hollywood is a hard to get to destination. Yes, 1000% yes. Every stereotype that you hear about this business is absolutely true. It's an extremely difficult path, and that's mainly because there isn't any one path. And especially for someone like me who wasn't grandfathered into the industry and didn't really have any connections and had to build my own network, there were many, many times that I was knocked down for a myriad of reasons. You know, you get rejected on a daily basis. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep, you know, stepping up. And quite frankly, you know, it's a very male-dominated industry. And so as a female in the business, I've had to work, you know, extra hard to prove myself and to get to this point in my career. So when young people ask advice of me, you know, like, how did you do it? Or what, you know, what great piece of advice can you give me? I always tell them, you have to ask yourself, is there anything else that you can do on this planet that would make you happy? And if there is, go and do that, because this is going to be very, very, very difficult. Now, everyone's path is different. Mine happened to be a long slog, and I'm still working and fighting every day on behalf of all of my projects. But, you know, if this is truly it for you and you truly love it, then, you know, you've got to have thick skin and you've got to have resilience and, you know, and just the will to keep persisting, because it's going to be a very, very difficult climb. But, you know, I can say I had some, you know, I developed through all of my work, you know, these wonderful relationships, especially with female executives who acted as shields for me. And so that's why I feel very important. I feel it's very important to act as a shield and a mentor to young people coming up in the business, in particular, you know, females and those who identify as, and then also young and diverse voices, because, you know, we're in a really wonderful and unique time in the sense that we're, you know, we're bringing that, all of that to the forefront right now. And, you know, I'm all about equality and storytelling, and I think it's a really cool time to be doing this. The next question is how my Greek heritage has contributed to my success and how important it is to me. And that's a very easy question for me to answer because it's extremely important to me. I feel like it is part of my fabric, and it is, you know, in my makeup, and it is, you know, the cultures and the traditions, and quite frankly, you know, even the Greek Orthodox religion providing a moral compass for me. So I think in sort of many facets of my life, my heritage, my culture, my religion has informed who I've become, and has helped contribute to the success of me, because I have, you know, I have all of that once again in my fabric. And you know, Greeks are fighters, and we, you know, tend to be hard workers, and you know, especially, you know, I've had a lot of wonderful Greek, strong Greek women in my life to look up to. And so, you know, I think that all of this combined is one of the major reasons I've experienced success. And along these lines, yes, I was recently named one of the 40 under 40 class members for 2020 by the Greek America Foundation. I was continue to be incredibly honored and humbled by this achievement, and you know, it recognizes both our professional and philanthropic contributions to the community. I do a lot of pro bono mentoring, and you know, and I was also recently named to the board of directors of the Los Angeles Greek Film Festival. So any effort that I get to make that combines my you know, my culture with my profession is like ticking all the boxes for me, and really, really just means so much to me deep within my soul, and I feel very humbled and grateful for any and all of those opportunities. So the last question is about the process behind making Safer at Home, my pandemic-themed thriller, during COVID lockdown. This was a very interesting and unique experience for us. Long story short, a director that I often write with and I had been gearing up to be making another film, potentially in New York City, and when COVID hit, everything got derailed. So we started to think of new ideas that we could potentially pitch around town. And long story short, he was spitballing one of these ideas with another producer on the film, and they brought it to me for something in the thriller millennial space. And so we fleshed out a treatment, and next thing we know, we were off and writing. Will and I, the director, and my co-writer, we spent, well, I would say 3 weeks of nonstop writing back to back to get it to a shooting script. And the entire process from starting the script to finishing the shoot was less than 2 months. And we happened to make this film during a lot of the unrest that was happening, when there were a lot of, you know, protests and riots and whatnot happening in Los Angeles. That was the same week that we were scheduled to shoot. So there were many, many, you know, complications or whatnot, but I would say that we had an incredibly trusting and wonderful cast that we were able to identify pretty quickly, and we kept them all safe. Most of them shot within their own homes or in total isolation in one of our places, in one of our sets. And you know, the process was extremely grueling, and we had a bunch of night shoots, and there were many, many things that, you know, had to happen in order for it to go right. But we had really dynamite producers, really dynamite cast and crew, and we were able to pull it off. And then eventually that movie sold. It went to the European film market, and it sold in many territories overseas, and it got, you know, so it got effectively international distribution. And then domestically, it premiered on February 26th, just a couple of weeks ago, and has expanded into drive-ins and theaters, and it's also available video on demand and whatnot. So we've been very, very, you know, fortunate to have been, you know, to be able to have made this project, this small project, during a very difficult time. And we're very fortunate that it has been experiencing this nice trajectory of getting distribution and so on and so forth. So very, very grateful for that. Thank you all for watching this video, and I wish you much health and happiness in the future and always. Thank you.